Good morning, Alessandro. Glad you...
Hi, Carmen. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to see you all.
Yes, we introduced you. What is your research interest and what your presentation is about? And we're very lucky to have you with us today. So at the end of the presentation, I will be asking questions and then we can have a small discussion. And at the moment, the Zoom is yours. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to you, Carmen. Thank you so much to Eva Waldner that also supported me during this preparation of this. And thank you a lot to the Tallinna University and the Estonian Social Work Association, allowing me to talk at the topic that definitely I feel so strong and so important in our social work. But first of all, let me introduce a little bit about myself. I'm a social worker. I had worked for almost 19 years in my hometown, that is Trieste, in northeast of Italy. I'm talking from this town now, but now I'm a full professor. My full-time job is to be full professor at the University of Trento, where I have been for more than 10 years. Well, this introduction, just to make you understand that for me, it's very important to connect the practice and the theory. And this connection, this bridge is definitely reflective practice. And emotions are so important in creating this bridge. Well, now I will go to the PowerPoint I prepared for this. Well, just one second. I hope you can see. If there are some problems, please let me know. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, before describing the 5 main points of what I'm going to say in my 20 minutes, the central thoughts of my presentation. Number 1, the professional practice of social workers can be enriched by mindful and reflective listening to the emotions. The emotions are not an obstacle in our work, in our being professional. They are a great allies if we listen to them. And point number 2, especially in situations of crisis and unexpected events, when difficult emotions are more frequent, this promotes the well-being not only of the social workers, but also of social worker students, involving structures from a reflection applied to the field practice, and to the well-being of the social work service users. So if we feel good, we can help people to feel better. Okay, 5 points. Well, number 1, shame. Number 2, 5 emotions: disgust, joy, fear, anger, and sadness. Number 3, what kind of tools can we use to better listen and better learn from our emotion in terms of reflective practice? Number 4, some voices of social workers on emotions. And number 5, the conclusion, what we can do. So, one slide to describe shame. On the top left, you can see what is a topic of these slides and the map of my presentation. So shame is a kind of meta-emotions, preventing us reflecting and learning from our emotions. We feel ashamed when we feel we are not good enough, we are not professional enough, when, for example, we are in a situation of work when we feel afraid or not enough adequate in doing our work. And when we feel ashamed, of course, we don't feel well, and we try to hide ourselves, like in these pictures, what children do. So, by the way, when we feel we are, our emotions are not the right one, I'm too much afraid for example, to make a field visit because, well, the service users, I know they are a little bit angry against my services. If I don't like to feel I'm afraid. and I'm ashamed of my emotions. But listening to our emotion is the most important way to better understand what is happening around of me and inside of me. So shame is a kind of meta emotions because in many cases it's emotion on our emotion. Like for example, anger, we don't like to feel anger, we don't like fear. Let's meet the other emotions. There are many classifications on emotions, but let's use what is 5 emotions. Elkman is the author who described these 5 basic emotions. And by the way, Elkman is also the psychologist who inspired the Walt Disney Pixar movie Inside Out. It's a movie, cartoon movie, animation movie, but can tell a lot to children and adults about emotions. What are emotions? Emotions, well, they are talking about what is going on around us. We feel disgust when we perceive something as toxic or unpleasant. We feel joy when we experience wonder or well-being. We feel fear when we perceive a threat to our security or well-being. We feel anger when we are hindered in achieving our goals mentally or physically. And we feel sadness when we lose something important. So, emotions are like messengers and messages at the same time. And they don't only tell us something about what is inside and outside of us, but they also have a message to do something. For example, when I'm afraid of something, that is, I perceive a threat to our security of my well-being, the message is run away from this danger. When I feel angry of something, the message is, well, push away this obstacle to your goal. And so, as I said, we have to listen our emotion, but it's not always easy. And there are 2 concepts that I think is very powerful, very useful, in order to help us to better deal with our emotion as a person, as a practitioner. The first concept, emotional intelligence, the main author is Goleman, is very well known worldwide. What Goleman said? Goleman simply said that emotion guide our decisions moment by moment in close collaboration with the rational mind, allowing logical thinking or making it impossible. So, emotions are our ally. As you can see in the top, in the image, we usually consider that emotions are something totally different from our brain. But in reality, research shows that there is a strong interconnection between emotions and rationality. So what you can see, it's an image coming from the Far East, from the Taoism, the Chinese philosophy, telling us that everything is so much connected. So emotions together with rationality guide us into the ocean of life, into the ocean and the sea of our perfection. But there is also another concept, not so well known, that I find it very useful when we talk about emotion. Emotional agility. The author is Susan David. It's a South African psychologist now based in the USA, working there. She says something very simple, and I try to describe it with an example. Let's imagine we are in our office. On the other side of our desk, there is a woman with her son, let's say 7 years old son. We are talking, they are describing how is their life. They describe themselves as a perfect couple of son and mother. But I know there is something there can be some problem because they send out the school, for example, sent to my office because there could be something. And when I'm listening to them, I feel something, I'm not so sure what it is. I feel something. And this feeling can be 2 different things. Well, maybe in the past, I had problems with women with long dark hair, like this woman in front of me. And I'm reacting to this situation in terms of emotional rigidity That is, I'm reacting to old experiences, bring this old experience in this now that is totally different. So this is a situation of emotional rigidity, but it could also be something different. For example, that I can see that they are telling me with words something totally different from what they are telling me with their nonverbal communication. For example, the child is trying to sit on the opposite side of the chair or something like that. So emotional agility means being flexible about thoughts and feelings to respond optimally to everyday situation, to listen to our emotion, but to be fully aware on what is going on. That is to be a good reflective practitioner. How to do that? And let's go to the point number 3 and try to describe it, some strategies for reflection, some strategies and tools for reflective practice based on emotional experience. Well, number 1, we have SMART questions. SMART questions lead a search and encourage thinking in new direction and areas. SMART questions are somehow, tailor-made questions made on the situation we are living in this moment. Well, for example, in this situation, describe that, why this child looks scared in his nonverbal. And I can build from this question, ask myself some further questions I can ask to the person in front of me. It's not easy to build, to tailor-made build SMART questions. So we have, several reflective frameworks, like the one made by Borton, Jones, Gibbs. I also made one based on mistakes, how to better reflect on situation when we made a mistake. And they are just a list of questions like the one I'm showing you. So this is, in short, what the Gibbs reflective cycle is. The Gibbs reflective cycle is a list of 40 questions, more or less. These 40 questions can be divided in 6 groups. Each of these groups has a core question and a title, a label. Let's start with the first group. The first group has a label like description of the experience, what happened, what did they do, what the other do, what was happening before, what happened now, after, or for example. The second step is to go deeper in our feelings, in our emotion. What were you feeling? What did you feel? Fear, other feelings, other emotions? Well, we can decide to reflect on an episode with a strong emotion, but let's not forget also the other emotions going hand in hand with a very strong one. It could be fear, sadness, or any other kind of feeling. Point number 3, the question number 1 is what was good and bad about the experience? Every situation, something good. Every success is something bad. Every mistake is something good. And when I go through this question, I can arrive at the stage number 4. What is the meaning of the experience? Or in terms of emotion, what is the purpose of this emotion? What did this emotion want to tell me? What is the meaning of that? And I create some new knowledge based on the experience I'm reflecting on. But we know that in social works, we want knowledge not for the pleasure of knowledge, but we want to use this new knowledge in future and better action. So the step number 5 is, I can describe it in a kind of a science fiction way. Let's imagine we can go back in time. What would we do differently to do better? But of course, we cannot go back in time. But we know that in the future, we can meet similar situations. So the point number 6, if a similar situation arose again, what would you do? And as you can see, this is a cycle. Why? Because we then, based on the knowledge we learn from reflecting on our experience, we can have a new experience, a better experience, but we can continue to reflect in a never-ending cycle. So question is a base number one to make questions, to make better and reflective practice. But then another strategy is to have a good colleague, we can call it a reflective friends or critical friends, someone who do not criticize, but offer external perspective to extend reflective capacity in the reflection practitioner partners. So this is very important to find and try to build a good connection with our colleague and to someone we don't feel ashamed to show also our failure, our weaknesses, our emotions we find not appropriate. The last strategy I want to share with you, it's a very concise form of reflective writing, where I asked during my workshop with social workers, I have many workshops with social workers, well, at the end, they go through this Gibbs reflective cycle. I ask them, summarize everything in 160 or 200 characters. And this is an example of what I call a bonsai story, because it's a story, very short one, but has everything that a longer story could have. Like a bonsai tree has in a smaller scale everything that a big tree has, leaves, branches, and so on. This is an example. Alcoholic and maltreating parents of 3 children. Failed construction of support networks. Do not underestimate the data of reality and do not select data that only confirm the possibility of recovery. Many cases we make mistakes because we see only those elements in reality that confirm what we already know. This is a bias, very important in the field of action. So based on this strategy, I collected many of these stories, many of bonsai stories. This again is an explanation on what I already told you. And I make workshop on this topic throughout the world, in Italy, my country, in the UK, South Africa, and England, and more recently, a few months ago, also in USA. And they saw that social workers, even though they speak different languages, they speak the same emotional languages. Because everywhere in the countries I met, thousands of social workers in person, online, most of the situations of anger are related with the organization. Usually organization make us feel angry. Disgust, sometimes we feel disgusted by policies and social services, unable to help people, or we are disgusted by those situations where there is a strong clash between our values and the situation we meet. For example, child abuse, child pornography, for example. Fear. Most of the social workers I met, they are afraid of mistakes and they are afraid of the aggression of social work. Sadness. When we meet situations of strong fragility, when the situation of our service users are so sad. But there is also a lot of joy in social work when we see our success, when we receive appreciation, gratitude, and when our service users will describe their joy. 2 stories about one of sadness and one of joy of this kind. I just read because the time is running. Sadness, this is a story was summarized again in 160 characters, a few words, but a patient assisted by a nursing team and a stable situation. The patient dies alone. Proven feeling sadness. The shared feeling has allowed personal and professional growth. You see here in a few words, you can see a situation, a very sad one, but also the learning, where sharing feeling has allowed me for a personal and professional growth. It's important to share feelings. Another bonsai story of joy. Received candy from an aggressive, multi-problematic service users. There was unemployment and criminal records. I received a gift as a gesture of trust created over 7 years. It was a difficult situation, I had a lot to work, a very energy consuming situation, but at the end, this person give me a candy with a very small gesture, but a very strong meaning, like a thank you. You had a lot to do with me. Last slide, the conclusion. What we can do, we have to stop and reflect on our experience of emotions. We have to listen to our emotion. This is good to learn, but it's also important for our well-being. Two things. What to do when we meet difficult emotion. The basic concept I use during my workshop is self-compassion. Christine Neff. There are three components of self-compassion. Number one, we have to be mindful on what is going on. We have to listen our emotion. Listen to that. They have important message to tell us. Number two, it's important to be connected with the others, with our colleagues, to be aware that we share our common humanity. We are all in the same boat. Our social workers feel the same when they have to face fear, sadness, and so on. We are all in the same boat. So be brave. Share your emotion, your experience with your colleagues. Be brave, even though you feel ashamed of that. Number three, be kind with yourself, especially when you have to deal with difficult emotion. Take care of yourself. But we also experience joy. And sometimes when you experience joy in our work, we say, okay, it's a good situation. I did well. People feel better, but we don't think so much about that. Please allow space for reflection or experience of joy in the profession, because this enables two key effects. Well, we learned a lot. We also from the experience of joy in our profession. But the more we think also about the experience of joy, the more we find motivation, especially in those situations that are difficult, in those situations when we feel frustrated. And this gives us a lot of energy, especially during periods when work becomes more challenging and more difficult to do that. So to conclude, take care of your difficult emotion, be self-compassionate with yourself, listen to your emotion, share your emotion, take care of yourself, but also let's think about the joy social work can produce in the people we help, and also in the fact that we can see how important our work is. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you so much for an interesting presentation. You have a chance to ask questions or comment, reflect on what Alessandro just discussed about. Then I will start the first question. How can social workers effectively integrate the reflective practice into their daily routines, especially if they have high pressure environments? What do you think? What is the best? Because we talk so much about how important it is, but yet if I talk with the students, this is not very common. So how can we promote it, and how can be it, like a normal part of the day?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very important question because, we know that in our organization, we have a lot to do and we don't have so much time to stop and reflect. That's true, absolutely true, not even to write. Students, when they do their field practice, they have to write a lot to reflect. But we are social work, so we don't have so much time. That's the reason why I created this kind of strategies of very short reflective writing, because to write a bonsai story like the one I show you, to write you just need 1 minute, but to think about that, of course, you need more time. So one of the suggestions I say to social workers when I meet them in my workshop or when meeting another situation, I say, okay, at the end of the week or at the end of the month, just give yourself 15 minutes, no more than that. and choose one episode of your experience that was especially strong in terms of emotion. Ask the questions of the Gibbs reflexive cycle: what happened, what I feel, what was the meaning, what I would do differently, and so on. And summarize this in 160 characters. Keep this story with yourself and use that to reflect 1 month after, to collect them, to have a list of them. Also keep your story of joy and read them again when you feel disconnected, and try and share. Also try to involve in the exercise also your colleagues. Well, you don't need so much time, half an hour in a month, 1 hour in a month. So try to make a kind of mutual supervision to each other, support each other, find your reflective friends. Believe me, you don't need so much time. You don't need so much time, and the effect of this can be very powerful.
Thank you so much. I do find the bonsai method very intriguing, and actually I've never heard of it before. While I was translating on slides, it was really interesting. So I do think that there is something for us to learn as well, and I definitely wanna try it. We have one more. We have time for one more question. Meil on aega veel üheks küsimuseks, kui teil on. Jaa.
Kuulasin seda emotsioonide tagasipeegeldamise lugu ja mõtlen, et eestlasele tegelikult ei ole absoluutselt omane peegeldada oma emotsioone või analüüsida oma emotsioone. Et see on ilmselt koht, kus ka ülikoolis võib-olla peab natukene rohkem tähelepanu juhtima. Et aga kuidas seal kaugel Itaalias on, et kuidas seal emotsioonide juhtimisega toime tullakse?
I will translate, because Eike said that it's not very common for us to reflect on our emotions. So, and perhaps this is something that we as also at university, we need to pay more attention to it. But how is it in Italy? How do you reflect on emotions? How does it work? Kas oli see küsimus? Jätsin uuesti midagi ära, Eike. Tahad sa veel lisada?
Yeah, it's the same. Thank you very much.
How do you cope with reflecting emotions as Italians?
Okay, well, people say that the Italians have very strong emotion. Well, it's a different way maybe to express that, and in some cases the stereotypes. But going around in very different culture, like again in Israel, in South Africa, in the USA, in the UK, so very different culture. Believe me that everywhere in the world, social workers think that being professional means to control our emotions. Some people, well, they say, well, emotions are not professional. But on the contrary, emotions are part of our professionality. If we don't listen to our emotions, so number one, it's impossible not to listen. Number two, we lose the opportunity to receive a lot of signal, to learn more, to be better. So I say we don't need to control our emotion. We need to listen our emotion, because if we really listen our emotion will leave. Like clouds in the sky, we know well, emotion comes and goes. They are like clouds in the sky. Sometimes there are storms, sometimes there is rains, but emotion don't leave till we haven't listened to what they want to say. Well, and this is very important to be so. And the profession, being practitioner, being professional, and being someone who listens to emotions. Usually, social workers, they don't do that. This is the reason why I like so much to talk everywhere I can with this topic, just to say, well, listen to your emotion. It's very important. We can do much, much better our work in doing that. I know it's not easy. It's like to go against a taboo, but it works when we do that. We can become better person and better practitioner. I hope I reply your question.
Thank you so much. And I think it's really, really important to remember, because it seems so logical, but yet I don't think that we have thought about it as deeply as you helped us today to think about it and to be more conscious about it as well. So we thank you so much for your presentation, and yes, and have a nice day.
Thank you so much and enjoy the conference. Thank you. Ciao. Bye-bye.